Welcome to Good for Bitcoin, a weekly show recorded live every Friday, where we recap the top events of the week and talk about everything that is good for Bitcoin. If it's built on Bitcoin, then it's good for Bitcoin. Let's get started.
Content shared on this podcast is for informational and entertainment purposes only. It does not constitute financial, investment, or legal advice. The views and opinions expressed are those of the host and guests and do not reflect the official policy or position of any other agency, organization, or company. We encourage you to conduct your own research and consult with a qualified professional before making any financial decisions.
Well, hello, everybody, and welcome to Good for Bitcoin. What a show. Hopefully, I don't know if you guys are hearing like some noise on your end. I'm hearing a little noise on my end. So hopefully it's not picking up on the mic, but welcome to Good for Bitcoin. It's a weekly show we do every Friday where we recap all the top events of the week, and we have so much to get into this week. I can't even speak. We have so much to get into. My name is Brandon, social media manager here at Trust Machines. We also have Kate, who is here behind the leather handle. Kate, happy Friday.
GM.
And Longstreet is here. Longstreet, happy Friday, sir.
Happy Friday, Brandon, Kate. Yeah, sound is all good on your end. It sounds crystal clear.
Gotcha. That's good. Good to know. Yeah, I'm hearing some like staticky kind of sound in my headphones, but must be just me. That's okay. We will continue with the static. Yeah, so much to get into. Everyone is buying Bitcoin. I think that's kind of the the theme of this week. So we're certainly going to talk about a lot of proposals and a lot of companies and a lot of people seemingly that are buying Bitcoin this week. Certainly due to the price. Before we get into a lot of the industry news, let's get into some of the Trust Machines product news, a lot of leather news this week. First, one that's very exciting because it helps several of our products is support for BNS v2 in leather. Very excited to see that come out. So now we have BNS v2 support. .locker, of course, benefits from that as well for folks that are claiming their .locker. And yeah, just really excited to be the first wallet to support the new version of BNS. And I think now the main thing that we're asking is for the community, we want more wallets to be supporting BNS. So, keep making noise, keep tagging other wallets. Let's get more wallets on BNS.
Brandon, what does that mean for people who have been sitting on their .btc names for the last couple of years?
So the main thing that it does is it improves kind of the user experience for existing BNS names. So for all the existing BNS names out there, all of us with .btc names, if you have any of the very OG .id names or any of the other ones that are out there, the main thing is you can now hold multiple BNS names in the same wallet. Previously, you needed to have many wallets. I know there's people that had like hundreds or even thousands of BNS names, and they had to have that many wallets to to manage them all, which is crazy. Now you can move them all into one wallet. They're basically treated now the same as NFTs are, Stacks NFTs are. And the reason that wasn't available before was that BNS actually predates Stacks NFTs. There's a very long history of BNS kind of going all the way back to Namecoin on Bitcoin originally, which is something that Satoshi actually contributed to. So long history. Basically, it's gone through this big upgrade to kind of modernize it, make it a little bit easier to manage them and store them in your wallets. And with that, you have a lot of new features. One of the really big ones was this kind of managed namespace feature that .locker is kind of making use of, where .locker has the ability to sort of issue names for folks that buy them. Buy a domain, .locker can kind of guide them through that setup process. So you don't have to go through the process of like buying stacks for, it's sort of like an onboarding tool, right? It makes it a lot easier for people to get acclimated into the ecosystem, to set up a leather wallet, claim their NFT, and get going. So yeah, a lot of improvements, but we need more wallets now. I think that's the call to action for everybody.
You know what I want? I want .og. I want Longstreet, Brandon.og, Kate.og. How does that sound? Who's building that?
Is .og an existing TLD, or does that nobody has .og yet?
I don't know, but I think in 5 minutes it will.
Well,
time to build.
Prepare to spend a lot of money on registering that namespace. I think when you register a BNS name, you're paying a fee, but technically that fee is burned. So it kind of benefits all Stacks holders when BNS names are registered. The same thing goes for namespaces, but the cost to register new namespaces gets higher the lower the letter count is. So for something like .og, I think you'd be looking at like tens or even like hundreds of thousands of stacks. It'd be pretty expensive. But you know, but hey, Longstreet, based on all of your profits that you made for your French Polymarket purchases, maybe you can afford it now.
Yeah, rumor has it that I am the Polymarket anonymous French person who was pushing the Polymarket in the right direction,
manipulating the markets.
Yes. that OG I am. Yeah. All right. Well, I'll tell you if I change to OG. We'll see.
Well, let me know. Yeah, if you register it, I'll be first in line to do a Brandon.og. And nice. I think Kate might have got rugged. We're going to bring her back up here, but moving on, because we have several leather announcements that happened this week. So next one is something that I know the Stacks community was really excited about. Is the ability to cancel a pending Stacks transaction. So that one's really cool. Their Stacks transactions work a little differently than like Bitcoin transactions because they sort of have to happen in a certain order. And that order is referred to as like the nonce of the transaction. Sometimes things can get a little bit broken, and there can be like nonce issues that can cause some transactions to get stuck. So this is really nice because it kind of fixes that. It allows you to, cancel any pending transactions and kind of clear up your transaction queue so that you can sort of resubmit if you need to, if anything kind of goes wrong and breaks. So very cool to have that for the Stacks community.
It's a huge win because before it would take days to clear, or you would have to, hop into a Discord and ask someone how to fix it. And then you have to learn what is nonce. No, it's not a town in France. Okay. It's number only used once. Okay, sure. And you'd have to just, dig into the weeds and try to fix it yourself. So this is a huge win. Bravo, Leather.
Yeah, very cool. Technically what's happening when you cancel it is replacing the transaction with a new transaction using the same nonce. And it's technically burning like 0.000001 STX when you're doing it, because it has to replace the transaction with something. So that's behind the scenes technically what it's doing. But pretty cool little kind of hacky way to enable cancellation of transactions.
Bravo, that's great. How about the .locker team at ICANN?
Yeah, looking forward to hearing more. So Don and Mo, who are on the .locker team, we've heard from Don on a few of the .locker spaces. He was on last week. I'm not sure if Mo has joined or if she's been a little bit more behind the scenes, but she kind of handles a lot of the operations and kind of like business development as well on the .locker side. So they are both in Istanbul this week for the annual ICANN conference. So they are sort of on the front lines with all of these Web 2 very traditional folks talking about .locker, talking about BNS, and just trying to get more people on board with the .locker solution and on BNS. And we talked about it in the BNS space that we had last week, but that is really a big focus with, whenever we're doing any sort of business development, any like trying to get people to, support .locker. You can't support .locker if you don't support BNS, right? So we are going kind of headfirst into trying to get people to adopt BNS as a protocol. And that's trying to benefit the ecosystem as a whole. So hopefully we'll hear a little bit more about it. We shared one image that they posted, but I think we'll have a little bit more of a recap next week once they get back.
Nice.
Lastly, we posted it this morning, I believe. A lot of big improvements to caching and just performance improvements in general in Leather. I have certainly noticed it since downloading the update. I've heard some confirmations from some other folks as well that it seems a little bit faster. Especially you'll especially notice it if you are somebody that has either a lot of accounts, thinking like all the BNS folks out there that have like many wallets in Leather, or if you just have are a collector and you have a lot of Stacks NFTs or a lot of ordinals. That data is now going to be cached a lot more efficiently, and I am certainly noticing a big improvement.
So we're talking about like the amount of time it takes for all the tokens and totals to load. Is that right?
Yeah. So basically, the amount of time it takes for them to load might not be faster because it was already fairly fast, but it won't need to reload quite as frequently. So it's going to sort of be a lot better at caching that data, so that it doesn't have to reload quite as often. So when you open up Leather, you'll just see all your NFTs there and all your assets there, and then it'll sort of reload in the background. But there's just a lot of improvements to kind of save a little bit more of that data, so you're not having to constantly re-download it.
Good.
Yeah, so big updates.
I'm already noticing a difference. That's fantastic.
Right on. That's great. Well, we had a really fantastic show. Longstreet or Kate, I'm going to throw it to you to talk about the Leather Lounge while I try to reset some of my audio because I'm still hearing some static and some echo on my end. So I'm going to throw it to you guys to talk a little bit about that show because it was really fun.
Kate, do you want to start?
Yeah. I'm also having some... Can you shoot me a thumbs up, Longstreet, if you can hear me? Because I'm also having some issues hearing things. All right, I'm just going to keep talking. Thank you.
Okay.
So yeah, we had a really awesome Leather Lounge this week with the Stamps community. And I think what was really cool is just to see like how decentralized this project is. At the end of the day, it really just seems like they're a group of people really passionate about art. And they just love like interacting with each other, putting things on Bitcoin, and it's just it was just like a really cool episode. I know that their community loved it because we got pretty technical with it, and I think that was maybe a bit of a change for them to see when they come on Spaces. So they loved just kind of like geeking out with how Stamps works with like embedding that into Bitcoin's blockchain. But yeah, we talked a lot about art on Bitcoin, the differences in ordinals and stamps, both technical and cultural. We got into the history of Counterparty and sort of just the evolution of how the stamps community got to where it is today. So yeah, I'd love to hear your thoughts too, Longstreet.
Yeah, that was a good summary. And basically, the biggest difference between stamps and ordinals is where the information is stored. And something that the stamps community takes a lot of pride in is that with ordinals, the data is stored in the witness data because of the segregated witness update. And what that means is that ordinals can actually be pruned. So if you are running a node, you could say, I want to run a more lean node. I don't want to take as much information, so I'm going to exclude all witness data. And that will mean that contribution to the network is excluding the ordinals, so it's not as fully decentralized. Technically, like ordinals can be pruned. So the difference with stamps is that data is stored within the UTXO, the unspent transaction output, meaning it's just part of Bitcoin. It cannot be separated. It cannot be removed from the chain. So, I mean, if we're talking about truly fully on-chain, immutable, decentralized, stamps is the way to go. And it's, as I reflect on this, stamps has been kind of on my radar, but it just didn't get the hype that ordinals did. And there are some additional limitations with stamps that might be legitimate for some people. When everyone is considering what art they have to put on chain, what's their preference? With ordinals, it's a little bit more cost effective and they have a little bit more wider range of data types that can be inscribed. But like I said, ordinals technically can be pruned, and with stamps, they can't be pruned. So it truly is forever if you get your information on stamps. So honestly, I feel like the stamps community is going to keep growing big. Like you mentioned, small passionate, small compared to ordinals, but I don't know. I think that Stamps deserves its time in the spotlight because, I mean, it comes down to where's the information stored? It's on the UTXO. It's going to be there forever. So, yeah, there's a lot of innovation happening. They talked about the platforms that are helping support artists to use as many different data types as possible, file types. So, definitely check out the show. It was an exciting one. It definitely went into the weeds. It was kind of tech heavy, but we got feedback from a lot of people within Stamps that they really liked that we dove into the technical details.
Yeah, I agree. I think I'm back now. Hopefully, I think it's better on my end, and I'm not hearing any static. But yeah, I really enjoyed the show. I think it was really cool to dive into. Stamps has gone through a lot of back end changes more recently, and I feel like we almost need like a part two to really kind of dive into exactly how the data is stored. How it used to be was that data was stored, like it was sort of split up into like many pieces and stored within individual UTXOs. And then those UTXOs were unspendable and they just were on the blockchain forever, essentially. And then they couldn't be removed or pruned. And I feel like they talked about how it's gone through this other sort of update and it's now kind of slightly different in how the data is stored. Did you guys catch that, or do you understand that a little bit better?
Yeah, I would love to get clarification on that as well. So maybe we do need to have a part two.
Yeah, but
I know that I don't know if it's traditionally or still it was base 64, but now there are some additional ways.
Right. Yeah, that does sound familiar. I think we did talk about that a little bit. I maybe have to go back and listen back to it as well because it was a good show. But I have always really appreciated the Stamps community. It is, Leather was one of the first like big wallets to support Bitcoin Stamps. And we supported it very early on, like early last year, which was just really cool. And Stamps comes from such a history on Bitcoin, having its roots in Counterparty, which were the first ever NFTs. The first NFTs were not on Ethereum. They were on Bitcoin through Counterparty. So just to have that very deep cultural history, I feel like there's a lot of people that are honoring kind of the rare Pepe art still on Stamps. And there's just, there's such a great culture in the Stamps community. So anytime that we have the opportunity to work with them on things, it's always a lot of fun. So I agree. I think we need to have a part two pretty soon.
Yeah, definitely. I just pinned a tweet, and that is from one of the original Stacks OGs who has been releasing Stacks NFTs for a while, Dial. He jumped in and he started minting some stamps. So I reshared some of his work to highlight what he's done. So good to see more artists jumping over to stamps. But shall we move into industry news? What is going on? Who's buying Bitcoin?
Yeah, let's get into it. We got a lot to cover this week. So this came out a few days ago, and then we actually had a few more companies that announced today. But let's just get into it. So the first one was AI company Genius Group has announced, and they're a public company, has announced that they will commit 90% or more of their current and future reserves to be held in Bitcoin. So some more details on this. They will be acquiring $120 million in Bitcoin as a long-term treasury asset. They'll also start accepting Bitcoin payments through their EdTech platform. They're sort of an educational kind of like AI kind of company. And this kind of came in the wake of a recent restructuring of their board to include some Web3 and blockchain experts. And a quote from them says, "We see Bitcoin as the primary store of value that will power these exponential technologies." So treating it as that store of value, right? A lot of these companies are trying to fight or combat inflation, and they're buying Bitcoin as a response to that.
Well, they are proving their namesake appropriately named. Genius Group.
That is a great point. Great point. And so we have three public companies to talk about that got into Bitcoin this week. So next one is a battery company, Solidion, I think is how you pronounce it. Solidion Technologies. They will be allocating 60% of their excess cash, converting interest earnings, and committing future capital to Bitcoin and integrating Bitcoin as a key treasury asset. And there's this really good quote from their CFO, Vlad Prancevich, who says, "We anticipate Bitcoin's next evolution will be widespread adoption as a reserve asset by both sovereign nations and corporations, creating substantial value and long-term upside potential for Bitcoin as it gains further global acceptance. We've made our first purchase and are excited to continue stacking Bitcoin in line with our policy parameters, with plans to evolve our strategy as we move forward."
God, it's so good to see so many leaders in multiple corporations being able to articulate, the value, and then getting everyone else on board. It's not like there's a bunch of Michael Saylors in the world who are surrounded by other board members who are green lighting all the time. It's a slow process, and I think what's happening now, everyone is feeling like, oh, it's happening. We're talking about nation state adoption. We're talking about statewide adoption. We don't want to miss the boat. So it's great to see people stepping out and, yes, at the company level, moving toward Bitcoin adoption strategy.
Yeah, and we've talked about it in the past how, these things take time, especially when you consider all the bureaucracy of boards, boards of directors getting on board with these things. So it is taking a while, right? It's sort of finally starting to happen now. But yeah, it is indeed very exciting.
So
go ahead.
Genius Group EdTech, battery company, Solidion, and
so the next one is this a social media and influencer company called Thumbs Up. it's THUMZUP, Thumbs Up Media Corp, and their board of directors approved a purchase of $1 million in BTC. I was trying to find out a little bit more information about this company's financials to see how much money they have. I think they very recently went public, I think in the past couple of months. So I don't know if they have a lot of info out yet. But their CEO, Robert Steele, this is a quote from him. He said, "With the newly sanctioned Bitcoin ETFs and growing backing from institutional investors, Bitcoin presents a strong addition to our treasury approach. Its finite supply and inflation-resistant qualities enhance its role as a reliable asset for preserving value."
Wow. I mean, when are we going to see Bitcoin's market cap overtake silver?
Well, we're going to get into that, but so one through line that I'm seeing, or a couple through lines that I'm seeing for these is a couple things that I'm really actually a little surprised by. For one, so Thumbs Up, we didn't know the percentage, but Genius Group is doing 90%. Solidion is doing 60%. These are big numbers, right? We used to see recommendations of allocations of 1, 2, 3%. Right? They are absolutely putting their money where their mouth is with these investments in allocating so aggressively into Bitcoin. So it's pretty incredible to see those large numbers. And I didn't mention it in the Solidion report, but reading their kind of press release that came out this morning, they also mentioned that it was sort of on the back of kind of the Bitcoin ETFs being approved. So the Bitcoin ETFs, got approved towards the beginning of this year, and it's taken this long, for us to start seeing some of the effects of that for these public companies. But it's reducing that, that reputational risk, right? BlackRock is in, all these, all these ETFs are out there. So there's no risk anymore to adopt some sort of Bitcoin strategy. But it's just taking this long because of the bureaucracy that all these public companies have to sort of get on board.
Wow. Yeah. On a day when the market overall is down, STI Solidion, their ticker is a little up for the day. So yeah, the buyers like it.
What I thought was pretty cool, I read somewhere that Genius Group said that they basically fully endorse the strategy that Michael Saylor took with MicroStrategy. So they're kind of following in his steps, which I thought was a pretty cool comment to see from them.
Very cool. Yeah, implementing that Saylor playbook. One thing that I noticed too with these announcements was it seems like Bitcoin Magazine, they have like a new Twitter handle or sort of a new group that is just like Bitcoin for corporations. So both of these announcements, I think I saw from them this morning. So I guess we'll have to keep an eye out on them. Perhaps it's kind of a new arm of kind of the Bitcoin machine that is trying to onboard more corporations and use that Michael Saylor playbook.
Ooh, don't miss the boat.
Well, let's get into Sean, what you mentioned, which is Bitcoin overtook silver this week, which is crazy. I'm looking at the charts right now. It's been kind of bouncing back and forth. I think it was yesterday or so. It actually it had also overtaken Saudi Aramco in market cap. It's underneath right now, but it overtook silver. It's overtaken the Vanguard total stock market ETF, and it's now sitting at position 8 in kind of all assets and stocks and ETFs and cryptos. And it's coming for that number 1 spot with gold. And pretty cool stuff.
Wild. Yeah, you mentioned Saudi Aramco. I think when Bitcoin was around the $93,000 price, that's when it overtook. Some potential next steps are Alphabet, Google. They have a $2.2 trillion market cap. Amazon is at 2.17. So not if, but when.
Yeah, Bitcoin is so close to Saudi Aramco right now. It's only just like a few $1 million. So pretty close. A little Bitcoin move could, could top it again.
Yeah, and NFA and all that fun stuff, but there's just so much talk of 100K by the end of December. And it seems pretty close, seems really doable. We've seen some crazy movements, post-election results. It's not that far away.
Well, speaking of NFA, we can move on to the next topic, which is Van Eck, their head of digital assets research. His name is Matthew Siegel. He was on CNBC on Wednesday, and he actually gave some Bitcoin price predictions. And he is predicting Bitcoin at 180K by the end of this kind of cycle, however you want to call that, like a 4-year cycle. So there was a lot of very bullish quotes in this interview. So I just want to read some of them off. So for one, talking about kind of where Bitcoin is right now at 90K or around 90K, he says, they think that it's just kind of getting started. He says, we're now in blue sky territory with no technical resistance. We think we're likely to make repeated all-time highs over the next 2 quarters. A number of indicators that we track are still flashing green. The number of inbound calls I'm getting from people who are at 0% or were at 1% and are now looking at 2 to 3% are starting to accelerate. Our price target for this cycle is 180K. That would be a 1,000% return from the bottom of last cycle. And then going on to say, Google searches are nowhere near where they were 4 years ago. Coinbase rank is nowhere near where it was 4 years ago. So still talking about the fact that a lot of retail still hasn't arrived yet. And yet we're, at these highs of Bitcoin being around 90K. So he still thinks that there is a long way to go.
Yeah, I have to agree. I think so.
Yeah, it was a very bullish interview, and I know he talked about how he's like looking forward to seeing this regulation through enforcement ending, and really hoping for a lot of innovation to come back to the States through kind of like ending this witch hunt on crypto innovators. So yeah, we'll see. 180K is extremely bullish, but maybe he knows something we don't.
Yeah, I didn't actually include it in our show notes for today, but we don't normally comment on rumors, but I think since Manib tweeted about it, we can talk about it. So Manib tweeted this morning, and I've actually noticed it. I'm not sure, or I don't remember who it was from, but I've seen it a couple times from people mentioning it on like Twitter this week. That let me pull up the tweet here live as we're waiting. So Manib is saying that rumors that the new administration might propose a 0% capital gains tax on crypto assets issued by U.S. companies. And he kind of went on to talk about, Stacks was the first ever qualified SEC offering and how it would be really great for kind of Bitcoin builders. But, 0% capital gains on crypto assets would certainly fuel a huge run up if that was the case. Since for short-term capital gains, for many folks in the U.S., that's like a 30% tax for short-term.
Exactly.
So as a result, I kind of tweeted out like if that does happen, it just makes sense that Bitcoin itself would go up 30% to sort of counteract that move, right? I don't think it's that irrational to say that. And I normally don't like to give any type of price prediction, but I think it just makes sense that would happen if this was indeed not a rumor and it was a confirmed thing.
But okay, so this is two things. One, I mean, realistically, probably not going to pass, but let's say it does. Isn't this only for crypto assets issued by U.S. companies? So Bitcoin is not a crypto asset issued by a U.S. company. So what can we tell in this room, which is already a rumor, like would Bitcoin fall into that category?
That's a very good point worth making. And we don't know, I guess, because it's a rumor. I guess we'll just have to see.
It can be treated differently. I know there's so much education happening right now. Who knows how Bitcoin is going to be treated? Maybe through some other ways and means or legislation, Bitcoin will have a 0% capital gains. You never know. I know there's such a limited window right now. Everyone is so bullish on everything. So I think it's going to be healthy to check your expectations and realize that politics is politics, and there's a lot of like promises and blue sky talk going on. But at the end of the day, like there's a pretty limited window of time when the new administration begins, when things can actually get done. So I'm trying to just like kind of temper my enthusiasm a little bit. Like everything sounds really good, but like let's see how it goes.
Yeah, I agree. That's maybe a good thing to kind of get into for the next topic, which is this Van Eck guy kind of talked about Coinbase, but Coinbase actually this week did become the #1 finance app in the App Store, and it's kind of in the top 10 now on the charts of the App Store. So retail is getting here. Looking at kind of the fear and greed index, which we like to look at sometimes, currently sitting at 80. Yesterday it was at 88. So we were at peak highs yesterday. And it has been kind of hovering in this kind of between kind of 70 to 80 over this past month or so. And as we kind of zoom out, it looks like kind of pre-October is when it was kind of a little bit farther down between like kind of 30 and 50. And it's been kind of, it shot up in October and it's been kind of in this higher range ever since.
That's a really good one. That's kind of like a poly market as well. But I would like to know more about like where do they get their information? How do they track fear and greed index? I've never taken a survey. Do you know where they get their information from?
I believe it has to do with something where they're like looking at social media sentiment in some way. I'm not sure if they've like, I'm kind of looking at kind of the data sources. It says we are gathering data from the 5 following sources, blah, 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 blah. Yeah. So they're looking at like volatility, market momentum and volume, social media, surveys, which they say are currently paused, Bitcoin dominance, and just Google Trends. So that's kind of the metrics that it's looking at. We can try to maybe get that pinned to take a look. It's kind of a longer URL, but if you Google crypto fear and greed index, it's on this alternative.me website, and they have a little bit more information on exactly how they measure that. And they even have an iOS widget that you can put on your phone. That's funny.
Yeah,
cool.
Because it's a good proxy to see like if there's euphoria in the market, which tends to mark like a top or a local top. But obviously, yes, I remember I remember those hard days in the bear when it was like, oh my gosh, FTX is blowing up and Bitcoin is at like 20,000 right now. Like just max fear, right? And that, I mean, you may as well replace that fear sticker with a buy sign right there.
Yeah, and your mention of kind of like tempering expectations and trying to not to get too excited. I've also been feeling that way this week. Yeah, trying not to get too excited. It does feel like there's a little bit of euphoria on the timeline at the moment. And I was reminded of this one tweet from Hunter Horsley, who is he's the CEO of Bitwise, and he had this really great tweet earlier this year on kind of when is a good time to buy Bitcoin, right? It's hard, obviously, to predict what Bitcoin's price is going to be in the future. But basically, his TLDR, and we'll try to get it pinned so you guys can see the tweet and the chart. But the TLDR is that if you miss the 10 best days of Bitcoin's return each year, you almost miss all the return. So Bitcoin has these really big upwards, spikes, not that often each year. And it's sort of a reminder to, it's very few reminders. It's very difficult to trade, these types of assets that are very volatile. It is overall a lot better to have a kind of more zoomed out kind of dollar cost averaging kind of strategy. And I think it's just a good reminder to think about it a little bit more rationally in that way versus just seeing, oh my gosh, Bitcoin is up and, everyone's getting so excited on the timeline. But it's, it's just important to zoom out a little bit and be a little bit more rational. And I think Kate just pinned it. So thank you, Kate, for doing that. Nice little chart there to see each year where it was kind of profitable or unprofitable to buy Bitcoin.
Wild. Yeah. Time in the market is better than timing the market.
Sage advice.
Yeah, this was such a cool this was a really cool chart to see. It reminded me of this there's a show called King of Queens, and it's sort of like plays on like new investors come in and they're like super excited, so they buy and then they see it drop and they sell, and like by the end of it you're just going through this roller coaster of emotions and you're left with nothing. So this chart was this was fun, but I think if anything it's more conviction to just zoom out, hold, don't panic. Don't get too greedy, but yeah, this was a good find, Brandon.
Thank you. Yeah, I can't remember. I mean, it was such a good tweet that I remembered it, even though it was like something that he posted like back in February of this year. That memorable of a tweet.
Wow.
But I was able to find it, and it was a good reminder. But yeah, let's move on. So next big news this week was Longstreet, your boy, was kind of teasing this. Dennis Porter was tweeting this week, or teasing this week, and it came out that the Pennsylvania House has now introduced a bill to implement a strategic Bitcoin reserve. So this was an exclusive from Eleanor Terrett at Fox Business. So just taking a couple sentences out of it. So it says, the Pennsylvania Bitcoin Strategic Reserve Act is the first of its kind and would allow the state's treasury to allocate up to 10% of its roughly $7 billion of state funds into Bitcoin as a way to help combat inflation and diversify its investments beyond traditional assets like bonds and cash reserves. Last month, the state's House passed a bill to protect residents' rights to self-custody digital assets and ensure their ability to use Bitcoin as a payment method. That bill is slated to move onto the Republican-led Senate in the coming weeks, and if passed, onto Governor Josh Shapiro's desk for signing. I believe we talked about that a few weeks ago, or maybe it was a month or two ago when that originally passed. And the advocacy group that helped Pennsylvania lawmakers craft the Bitcoin rights bill was the Satoshi Action Fund, which is Dennis Porter. And if passed, and it also they were also behind that Bitcoin reserve bill that passed and is now going on to Senate vote. And there's a quote from Dennis Porter. He says, he tells Fox Business that Strategic Reserve Act is expected to serve as a model for other states looking to integrate digital assets into their investment portfolios, and says that the Satoshi Action Fund is currently in talks with 10 other states to implement similar legislation.
Wow. So complete guess, but what other states do you think are in that group of 10?
Well, I didn't include include this news item in the show notes this week, but there was this news story of all these different states suing the SEC for their treatment of crypto. And I feel like a lot of those states are probably included in this. But yeah, I don't know. But either way, I mean, just going back to our theme of this week, right? Everybody wants to buy Bitcoin. We have states, we have public companies, and it's hard not to be bullish on all this news. It's pretty crazy stuff.
Well, we can't have a well-rounded show unless we have something in the column of not good for Bitcoin.
Well, in order to buy Bitcoin, somebody needs to be selling it. And we've talked about the Kingdom of Bhutan. I guess they dumped 367 Bitcoin on the market this week. I think that is actually what caused a little bit of the dip. I think yesterday is when this news came out. So they recently transferred $33.51 million worth of Bitcoin to Binance. And that was kind of just trackable on chain because, as we have talked about, all their Bitcoin is on chain. They're mining Bitcoin. It's on chain, of course. So they moved some of that over to Binance. This transaction follows a similar move that they made in late October, where they transferred $66 million worth of Bitcoin to Binance. And that amount, it's about 33.51 million of Bitcoin. So not a huge amount in kind of the grand scheme of things, but it's kind of just shows that they are potentially, taking a little bit off the top. Maybe they're doing some kind of dollar cost selling of Bitcoin, and they still hold a really large amount. So they still have over 12,000 Bitcoin remaining, worth over 1.1 billion. So they're not getting out of their position at all. They're just, selling a little bit, maybe to pay for some new mining rigs or something like that.
From what I understand, Bhutan actually engages in mining though itself as like a nation state. I think they have like a lot of hydro power that they harness for this, which is pretty cool because in contrast to a lot of other governments, most governments get their Bitcoin through asset seizures. Um, so yeah, so while we see them selling, it's also like they are participating and supporting Bitcoin through mining. So maybe that's like the little sprinkle of good for Bitcoin on this story.
Yeah.
That's a good point. Yeah, we did talk about that last time, that they do have hydropower. They're maximizing it. So yeah, you gotta cover your costs.
Yeah, I mean, you can't just buy a Bitcoin forever, right? Eventually, you're going to need to use it. So, yeah, they still have more, and I think they'll still, of course, be accumulating more. I'm not sure kind of what their sort of how powerful kind of their mining setup is in terms of like how much Bitcoin are they generating per month? How much new Bitcoin are they generating per month? I'm sure that data is out there somewhere. So yeah, they're selling a little bit. They're accumulating more through mining. It's all good for Bitcoin.
It's all good. I hope that more countries get into mining. I think that would be pretty cool. But in the meantime, I think that more like even if it's private companies participating in this, the more decentralized mining becomes. It's just a more bullish case for Bitcoin.
Go ahead, Brandon. Yeah.
Well, there's been some folks that have been kind of speculating a little bit on this as well, right? With Trump getting so, and his kind of team being so on board with Bitcoin. Trump won't be in office for a few months. So now it's kind of like, balls in every other nation's court, right? To sort of front run the US almost in kind of Bitcoin allocation. So we're seeing, some speculation of that as well. And just generally, I feel like there are probably a lot of countries that are accumulating quietly, but trying not to be public about it because of that game theory, right? They don't want to reveal that they are, acquiring Bitcoin because they want to be able to acquire more before everybody else does. So there's certainly that game theory at play.
Yeah, that's such a good point. January 20th is inauguration day, so that's a ways away. And I heard Trump say something like, we want to make sure America is mining all the Bitcoins, right? Which is definitely not a Bitcoiner ethos. We want decentralization. We don't want one country mining all the Bitcoins. But I don't know, he's directionally right. We want the innovation.
Yeah, maybe kind of going back to that rumor, right? Maybe there'll be like a 0% like capital gains tax on like Bitcoin mined in the US or something like that. Some sort of benefit for miners to kind of really double down on his promises or his, desires there. So we will see about that.
Yeah. There could be energy subsidies too, which is something that, the US does a lot too. That's curious. Yeah, I'm curious to see about that.
Yeah, there was a really good podcast that I was listening to. Howard Lutnick was on the Pomp podcast a couple weeks ago, and he is part of Trump's transition campaign. And he is, I think, the CEO of I forget the bank, but he's the CEO of the bank that custodies a large amount of Tether's assets. So he is very, very big on crypto, and he was talking about just all of these cabinet members and all of these people that are coming on board that are so deeply ingrained in crypto. Whatever you say, I guess, about kind of how convicted Trump himself is, whether he was pandering or whatever, all the people that he is bringing on board are very deep in crypto. RFK, obviously, very deep in crypto. Elon Musk, Tesla holds Bitcoin on their balance sheet. There's so many people that are going to be part of this administration that are pro Bitcoin specifically. So, yeah,
that's a good point. You don't need to be the expert. You need to be surrounded by the experts.
Yeah. Well, I think that's it for all of the show notes that I had. All the big news stories. Everyone wants Bitcoin. I guess that is the theme for this week. I don't know, Sean, Kate, anything else that stand out to you this week?
Just a quick shout out to the regular listeners who we have here. Thank you, Hero, Algorithm, Hattie, Absolute. Always good to see you guys. Thank you.
Just excited to keep making Bitcoin fun again. That's all I can say. There's a good feeling in the air, a lot of optimism. And I think now till the end of the year, it's just going to be a lot of fun, a lot of good stuff happening. And yeah, couldn't be more thankful to be working in this industry or surrounded by so many amazing, smart, talented people.
Well said.
Very well said. Shout out to the builders. I mean, everybody that's been building over the past several years in this kind of bare, kind of stagnant market. This is what we prepared for, right?
Yeah. The only thing I do want to end with is, again, the ethos. I probably say this like 2 times a month at least, but it's don't trust, verify. We're in the next 12 months are going to be super exciting, super bullish, lots of good news, lots of hype, and things that sound too good to be true. So it's always good to keep that ethos. We've made it through the bear, but don't trust, verify. Let's keep that there in the mind.
Well, that is a good place to end it. Thank you so much for tuning in, everybody. We will see you next Tuesday on a new episode of Leather Lounge. Sean, do we want to tease that as well? Do we want to announce who's going to be on that show?
Sure. Yeah. Next week, we're going to have some OGs from the Stacks ecosystem, including Gary Reiger and Good Kitty. They are building out a website called, TBD, just in case they're keeping it secret for now. But yeah, we're going to be talking a lot about music and NFTs and how artists can maximize and be welcomed into this Web3 ecosystem. So lots of innovation happening between those two builders. We'll be hearing from some musicians and artists and Gary and Good Kitty. So yeah, that's Tuesday at 11 a.m. Eastern. Did I get that time right? Could we have a new time? That's right. 11
a.m. Yes. Looking forward to that show. Both big friends of the show, so or friends of Leather in general. So looking forward to having both of them on. And I think we're having a few more guests too. I think we're trying to lock in everybody. So TBD on all the guests that will be joining. But yeah, excited for that. And yeah, just in general, as we're looking ahead towards kind of the end of this year, we have a few campaigns that we're working on for leather that we're so excited to share more about. We have a lot of collaborations in the works, and it's just going to be a really good, next month and a half to be in this ecosystem. So really looking forward to that. Have a great weekend, everybody. We will see you next week. And yeah, good for Bitcoin.
Thank you. Bye.
Take care, everyone.
Thank you for listening. We record Good for Bitcoin live every Friday at 2 p.m. Eastern Time on X. Please follow us at Trust Machines Co. if you would like to listen and engage with us live. Visit us at trustmachines.co for all the latest Bitcoin news. We'll see you next week.